Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time of the day you happen to be watching this episode of Capture Capitalist. Today we're going to focus on INfuse product improvements. And if you're not familiar with INfuse, we have an episode we put up back in December that talked about INfuse, the launch of it. We interviewed Jim Forger, the worldwide product manager. We talked about the initial release of the product and some of the success we were seeing back then, along with the future roadmap for INfuse. So if you haven't had a chance to see INfuse and learn about smart connected scanning and the Internet of Things and how that all works together, I suggest you go back and take a look at that. Two things I want to talk about in this episode: ongoing product improvements that have been made to INfuse, followed by the market adoption that we're seeing in the field. In 2 short months, we've made some very impactful changes to the offering with the cooperation of Alaris to address some feedback we were getting from the field in our early adopters and early deployments. Number one, we had a client that had a need for the ability to input a value immediately after they depressed the button to ingest the documents. And that value was only known at the time when the button is depressed. It's not contained on the documents, nor is it something that could be auto-assigned at the time of ingestion of the documents. So we had to come up with a way to allow the user to input this value immediately after they scanned. We did this for them with their tethered-based scanning. If we were going to replace tethered-based scanning, we needed to replicate this feature inside of INfuse. With some communication back and forth with the Alaris development team, in a very short period of time, measured in weeks, not quarters, we were able to affect this change and deploy it right through the web. It did not require us to go out on site to make the change to the devices in order to incorporate this feature. So it was well received by the client that we were able to accommodate this feature request in such a narrow or short period of time. The second feature of INfuse, the ability to capture documents without the use of an ADF, in other words, a flatbed attachment. And the flatbed attachment has been there, it's otherwise known as a passport feeder as well, since the product's been released. However, the way it worked is if I want to scan documents with an ADF, that's one button action and it's its own unique batch. If I want to scan a passport or an envelope or some other receipt or something like that that's not suitable for an ADF, then I would use another button, and that would be a separate batch. So I end up with 2 batches with different names, and I have to come up with a creative process downstream in order to reattach or reassemble those 2 distinct batches back together as one. What we did is went back to Alaris, we stated the business problem and asked to have that passport feature in ADF, any documents ingested, that we could configure that inside of the application in the cloud to treat that button process, to basically combine those 2 input sources together and treat the documents that result from that capture process as a single batch. So that required collaboration between the customer, understand the business need was, us as the partner, how it affected CAPSYS Capture Online, and then being able to get with Alaris to effect a change inside the management console so we could deploy an updated piece of software down to the device. Another feature inside of INfuse that did not require any sort of software change, the ability to ingest documents with that you might think should go through the passport or flatbed feeder, but really could go through the ADF. But out of the box, it gives the appearance that it'll jam the documents in the ADF. So an example of that would be like an envelope. An envelope has varying thicknesses. They're torn at times when they're opened. They've got stamps on them, which can affect also the thickness. so the immediate thought is, well, to address that problem, I will put them through the passport attachment. Well, the passport attachment has an expense behind it. Is there another way to accomplish it without having to add the passport flatbed feature? And the answer to that is, yeah, probably. And that is what's called the gap release mechanism. And I'll show a video of this as I'm narrating here. What the gap release does is it detaches or disables the separation rollers. And what the separation rollers are used for is to detect one page from another page from another page when you're going through the ADF feeder, to make sure you get page separation and you don't piggyback 2 or more pages together in a single pass, which wouldn't be good because you're missing pages, or you could potentially, most likely, create a jam situation. What you do when you have a batch that consists of a bunch of pages and then an envelope, you save the envelope as the last page, scan all your pages through the ADF. When you get to the last page of the documents in the ADF, you hit the pause button on the panel of the scanner, which then puts the scanner into a wait mode, enough time to release the gap release. And then you put your envelope in the ADF feeder and then hit continue, and that envelope will go through without jamming or causing a problem in the scanner transport. And then also, what's important, at the end of that process, it's treated as a single batch, not 2 separate batches. There's 2 ways to solve that problem: passport flatbed attachment, or B, the gap release, which doesn't require that. Now, the third and final feature enhancement that has been made to the product is a UI improvement. And what we were getting feedback from our user community on was the buttons inside the OCP, or what is otherwise known as just the operator panel, where you interact with the device. The buttons are relatively small, and so for an elderly population or people with eyesight issues, it could pose a problem. And we actually did get that feedback from a customer, and Kodak Alaris, listening to our feedback, stating the business case behind why we needed that, they were able to effect a change which made them more pronounced, so that people with perhaps some UI difficulties they were experiencing now are in much better situation. In fact, everybody gets the UI update, and everybody will have the benefit of the improvement that has been made to the user interface on the device. So in, let's call it 2 months, these changes, there are other ones too, but these are probably the most interesting ones. So let's talk about the market adoption. So this is a large commercial construction distributor based here in the Midwest. Provide product to people that build, contractors that build roads, bridges, rebar, concrete materials, mixing equipment. They also provide materials for building, Amazon warehouses, 1 million square foot Amazon, 2 million, 4-story Amazon distribution warehouses as an example. Okay, so these guys do big stuff. Hydromobile are some of their brands, Lowell, Steel, Honda, high-end compressors, the kind you see construction trucks pulling behind. And they do this, both the sales of it and the rental. I mean, you got documents coming in from the field after delivery. It's muddy, raining, sleet, snow. These guys are unloading, getting signatures of material and equipment received, and then the stuff gets wet, gets dirty. Your traditional documents, AP, sales order, AR stuff, purchase order emails, blah blah blah, all that fun set of usual suspect type documentation. So what we've been doing for this customer for a long time is going to their site, picking up their documents as they create them, and then bringing them back to our facility to scan them, index them, and then turn the resulting product back around to them in electronic form through the cloud, and then also return their documents, and then rinse and repeat the cycle over and over and over. Well, I mean, is there a better way to do that process? And it turns out INfuse actually is the better way. So what we did is we introduced the INfuse to them, we supplied them with a easy setup configuration sheet in the INfuse scanner at the various locations, and those devices go online, as you know, very quickly, 5 minutes or less, and now the customer can scan their own documents at their convenience as soon as they want them into the process. And in fact, the process is exactly the same process we were using in our internal service bureau operation, using CAPSYS Capture Online in the cloud. It's just, instead of us scanning those documents, they're scanning those documents, and they're able to get them ingested into the workflow process much sooner than us waiting for a week to come by and pick their documents up, drop off the previous ones, and that whole process is eliminated. So speeding up the workflow process for the customer, reducing cycle times, absolutely key and of value to the customer. INfuse image handling, not a problem with the types of documents that are coming in from the field. They're handling them quite well. The volume, they got no issues with the volume in terms of the way these devices can handle the speed and efficiency of the capture process. So it's a great application for INfuse, we have found. Logistics and transportation is another market. Similar problems to the construction organization cloud solution. This is also hybrid. They have on-premise integration we had to do with it, and these are folks that not only deliver product and semi-tractor trailers as well as minivans. They have a bunch of mom and pop relationships with broker dealers who are doing the last mile distribution and delivery on behalf of this organization. So they're like a contractor, an authorized contractor. There's just a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of signatures along the way. It's very distributed, and there's tons of volume. Absolutely important that this paperwork gets turned around quickly. So this organization has depots, sometimes right at airports. They'll have them at the warehouses. This organization actually not only serves as a trucking transportation organization, it serves as a logistics organization. So in other words, they have their own warehouses where they store product for some of these retailers. Those folks have to communicate, obviously, all the paperwork back to corporate in order to get bills paid and their agents paid and all that other kind of fun stuff. INfuse is a way to get that paper ingested into their CAPSYS Capture Online workflow processes a lot faster than waiting for a centralized kind of scanning approach, which is what they were doing in the past. All right, insurers and reinsurers, these guys do underwriting of policies. They also share in the risk with other insurers. Lots of paperwork involved in that. There are trailing docs that show up during the underwriting process from agents, broker dealers. That paperwork, envelopes, I'd mentioned that envelope change, gap release, function feature, county government, villages, municipalities, just tons of activity going on here. Two sides of that coin. One is the constituent. For the folks walking in, government self-service kiosks, INfuse is a great play there because you can have a very greatly simplified user interface on the INfuse, one button to begin the process of onboarding your tax appeals documents. Okay, I know a lot of that can be done online, but there's an aging population that chooses to bring their paperwork in to the assessor's office and present their case in person. And so a way to get that paperwork into the appeals process is have that constituent take the paper, drop it into the ADF feeder of the INfuse device, and hit the tax appeals button, and off those documents go in. Case management process for appeals. Another situation is internal use. So for the employees of various business processes inside county government, we're seeing HR onboarding is an example, HR documents. Instead of the employee having a PC and tethered, based scanning, and IT having to manage and support that, and with all the Windows 10 updates, refresh activities going on, this is a way to make IT's life a heck of a lot easier. If I can eliminate the need to have IT have to refresh the PC, refresh drivers, refresh application software, refresh scanners because of Windows 10 for a capture application, all the better, because you make their life a lot easier. Because they're very limited, as we have found, and they keep getting more and more projects put upon them, and they've got less and less resources. INfuse is a great solution for that. Easy setup. We configure everything from the cloud, push the applications down to the device, and away they go. There's another one, I'm going to save it for a future episode. State government / Department of Motor Vehicles. There's a lot of interesting activities going on in that market. You've heard of the whole Real ID push. We've got some really cool, innovative things we've done there. So I'm going to save it for an episode in and of itself. So with that, folks, I'm going to call it the day. I've already taken up enough of your time. I'm going to try and keep these short, sweet, to the point, so you can catch updates on your drive in and drive home. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.